Mohammed Mahboob, and I'm here to talk about introduction to Revit add-ons and programming, and I'm sure it's everyone's favorite topic. And I work for Buro Happold Engineering at the Dubai office, which I just started like last week, so just for your information. And I've been using a lot of BIM authoring tools, and where I was using Revit quite a long time, probably like 7-8 years, where I started working with the Revit on a content basis, where I was like working with one of the building product manufacturer as a content specialist, where I was making the parametric families. And then like since it started, by the time with 2011, Autodesk has actually introduced the API, which is the programming interface. And so when I started in 2012, I got an opportunity to explore more in terms of programming. Because on a daily basis, we were basically working for the manufacturers, creating manufacturer family. Probably you might heard about SmartBIM. It's a company in US where they provide the manufacturing families. And so most of these families, they actually requires a lot of data to be inputted. So it was getting every time, as you might have been familiar with Revit, that every time you have to add certain parameters, then you have to go to certain checklists, like what type of parameter it is, where would you group under, and what would be the value of it. So it was kind of like a huge list of data that we have to add to every single element. And then we started like looking into the big picture, which is the programming. Obviously, that would save a lot of time for us. And since then, it's begun, and then I started then, and I was also coding into many other authoring tools as well. But specifically, like most of the companies, the work practice that I have, like they were heavily using Autodesk Revit. So just a quick poll, like how many of you have been using add-ons? And how many of you have been programming? Yes, quite a lot. And would you like to learn programming? Yes, that's good. I have actually divided the session into, because we have 55 minutes, so I have divided the session into 4 different groups. So there will be an introduction to actually what we are gonna do, and then we'll see where we can actually start exploring on the programming side, where would you find the add-ons, like how do you customize it, and then we'll look into some of the options, the different languages that we have for the programming, and then any recommendations. And by the end of the slide, you will find my contact details, so just feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions. So what is the programming? These are the basic terms that you might probably heard about when you listen about programming. And a lot of people who still think like, being an architect, being an engineer, why should I actually learn programming? By the way, my background is civil engineering. I do have a degree in mechanical engineering, so I do heavily work on the multidiscipline. So it's just not my focus into any discipline in particular. So a lot of time we have been asked like, why learn programming? And one of the first things that I have been taught is like, why not learn programming? Because it actually gives you the intelligence to the way that computer works. You can think in the similar manner. API is generally the word that we oftenly used to do the programming, which is the application programming interface, it stands for. All the slides will be available on my blog, and then there will be some goodies as well, like some of the tools that I just created specific for the session that would also be available online. So if you forget to take any notes, or if I change the slide in the middle when you're reading, so just feel free to download from the website. And the Revit add-ons, it's basically called as like add-ons. Some people might call it as add-ins or tools or plugins. There are like actually several terms to it. And it's basically a helper that puts on top of your application and then boosts the productivity of your tool. And why do I need add-ins? Of course, the very first reason is like doing the repetitive task. You know, a lot of things computer cannot do it automated, but once you start putting up some intelligent in the code format, then the computer can actually perform those actions. And it actually helps you in your workflow, in your daily workflow, because a lot of times, like you might probably have seen cases where you have to, you know, do the submission into a PDF format, where when you start exporting from Revit, it probably might take a bit of time based on the number of drawings. And you know, you have to actually dedicate a person to do that. And then while it is exporting, you actually cannot do something else on your computer. Obviously, if you have two screens, yes, you can, but there are some limitations to it. Quiz time. There are some families inside a folder. I wanted to know what version of those families are. Is it possible to do it? Is it possible to know what families are there inside this folder? So as an example, sorry, I'll switch back between as you can see, I have families, the Revit families inside a folder where I don't know whether it's 2014, 2015, or 16, because as you know, that Revit is not backwards compatible. So once you upgrade it, you cannot downgrade it back. Yeah? And families, you cannot actually export to an IFC format. So that you can actually, if it is a project, then obviously you can export to IFC format, and then you can open it into the previous version. But if it is a family, then you cannot actually do that. And so I have a list of families here in the folder where I would like to know what's the family version of it, and then what category of family it is. So probably you might find some tables, doors, windows, you know, the equipments, generic models, all those terms that you commonly hear inside Revit. So any guesses? Is there a way? Sorry? Okay, even, sorry, just to understand by here. No. There is a way where you can actually find out what family of this category it is, and then what version of the family. So this is called Revit version checker. So basically what it does is like you just specify the path to it, and then it actually takes that folder and gets you the detail of that particular family. So as an example, if I say add file, the user interface is pretty much you know, understandable, where you have, you know, you can open files, remove, and rename. So if I say add files, I have to select the path where the families are. So Control C, paste. I can simply select all the families. Sorry about this, but you can see that it specifies the name, the type of the family, whether it's a family or it's a project. You can do this for both, and what version of it. So as you can see here, you have this version tab, where a lot of these families have been given as a version, but there are few of the families which have been created in 2009 version. This is something that I have to like just pulled out from my very old library. So here you can see actually that the Revit version is 2010. If I have to show this on a library, which is the latest one, which is program. So I'm going into Revit 2014 folder. I will grab few families here. I will say append files. I will select the files. And you can see that the version, I can see that it's 2014. And I can append the version name after as the family ends. So I have an option whether I can pre-append the version or append it, or I can actually clear it. Yeah. And this is the way you can actually find out the Revit version. And the another quick way, where I'll just show you a quick one. So I'm copying few families to my desktop. So as you can see, there are a few columns. I will just basically do an RFA, a search. I will just copy the files. So I actually don't know what version and what category of those families are. I could pull up actually few of them as well. So this is the folder path where the families have been saved. I will copy this, go back to my Revit, and then I go to the family organizer. This is something that you actually don't see. Family organizer, I have to select the path which is in the new folder, and then where I would actually like this family to save, because I want to categorize them based on the Revit object. So browse location, I will choose the same location, process. In the background, what is happening is like rather me opening the file and then going to the category and parameters, checking which category it is, then saving as to the folder, it's actually doing the same exercise for me. So whereas if I have like a 10,000 families of library, I could eventually spend like 2 hours just to figure out what version and then what category it is. Rather, if I have to do it manually, I would spend like weeks to do this, if that makes sense. Probably you might have, you can see that what is happening here is actually organizing all the folders based on those families, and then it's dumping those families inside this folder. So if I go to the columns, I still have the column families, foundation, and it's still processing, which means there are a few of the families, but this will happen in the background. But the idea behind this is like, if you have to organize the families, or if you have to organize the library, then these are some of the best tools that you can utilize it. And once you start implementing the API side, you can see on the big picture, you can actually do a lot of creative stuff, which actually don't require the manual stuff. So once I bundle this application, I can actually just share it with anybody. So if I spend a certain amount of time figuring out how this could be done, and then once I bundle the application, I can just distribute among people. So as you can see, that it's still happening, and it's still creating the folders. And after the folders, it creates an XML file. It's a XAML file. What it does basically is takes all the parameters from that particular family and then extract into that XML file. So on a big picture, like our idea behind this was to create a web-based library where I can actually link all the families to the web browser, load all the data. So when I click a family, I can actually see all the parameters related to it. I can edit the parameters from there. I can modify the changes. So that's the overall idea behind that. So if I open this, you can open the XML file into a notepad as well. I am using Notepad++. As you can see, that it's an XML language. So if you kind of understand this, then you probably might know how it looks. But just to give you an overview, you can see that the type of parameters, you can see that the column is here, and there might be a lot of parameters that you should be, you probably might see this show family pre-cut in the plan view when you actually load this column family. So all those details, like tiny details, it gets extracted apart from just the parameters. Okay, so once it is done, it gives a message to close. I would actually continue with the slides. Some of the sample stories that we might have been seen on a daily basis, like as a Revit content specialist, when I create families, I send it for QA/QC. I want somebody to check it and approve it just so that I can dump it back into the library. Yeah. So even once I finish creating the families, it's a component. So you have to obviously load it into the project to verify whether all the parameters are working. And then the visibility wise, like you have like a specific visibility assigned to it. So as a content specialist, I would like to just randomly place a bunch of families, let's say 500 families. I want to just load it into the project. I just don't want to load it into the project, but I actually physically wanted to place it into the project. Make sense? And also, oftentimes, like for every project, there is a need. Like we will end up with like hundreds of sheets creating it, and which is like still a manual process. You don't have like kind of an automatic process where you can actually create all the sheets, place all the views, tag them all, export it to the PDF. Obviously, the design checking has to be done manually. That I will not consider. But creating those tiny details, that you constantly or repeatedly do on a project basis every time, that saves you some time. I want to see Naviswork is a pretty good tool where you can actually find out the clashes, and you can generate the report and then bring some kind of input back into Revit where it can kind of create you certain views to it as well. And upgrading families, it's always a trouble because we started with 2014, 2015 release, we upgraded to 2015, and obviously we will end up in a project with plus 500 families. Upgrading them, it's still a manual task. You can still drag and drop, but you still have to obviously face some kind of errors if that family has when you are upgrading it. So all the upgrading part, it could be done automatically. You just have to click a button and then it gets upgraded. So looking into the add-in stuff, like where you can actually find those add-ins, like what is happening in the market, like what people are actually doing with it, whether are those available to everyone or it's not available. Let's find it out. Let's actually shop the add-in. Let's do some shopping. So there are quite a lot of websites that you might find when you go to my blog. I would actually, by the end of this session, probably tomorrow or over the weekend, I would actually collect all those data for you so that you don't have to do all those investigations that I have did in the past, because to be honest, coming from an engineering background, I struggle a lot because programming was not really my subject. Yeah. Obviously, you can understand this because coming from a different background and programming is not your subject, you would obviously struggle a lot. And there might be some little handouts and some kind of stuff which I actually moved to a new blog and I superseded my old one. So you might find a lot of new things which are coming in the future as well. So there are quite a lot of websites now, but Autodesk, they have put a great effort and created a website which is called App Store, where you can not only find the applications for Autodesk Revit, but you can actually find the applications for various products like AutoCAD, or if you're talking about Inventor, all those kind of softwares. So it's a lot of tools available online, and by default, when you subscribe, when you have a subscription with Autodesk, they give you the subscription apps. Probably you might have been using it. It got some pretty sweet tool as well. And there are a lot of third-party tools that you might see that it's been developed already, and they are still in the development stage. And one of those tools would also be linked into my blog as well. And there are a lot of independent developments as well, which is going to happen as like as me, like if I have to do some task, I actually rather, after creating the application, I actually don't publish it because it's just for the project basis, and it is to the project specific, where I create only for independent use. There are a lot of freelancer programmers that you can actually hire if you don't know the programming, or if you are not quite interested to learn it from scratch. You can hire some freelancer. They can actually develop the applications for you. And obviously, like most of the companies, once they realize the potential of the tools, they will start developing their own in-house custom tools. And a lot of them will be available online for downloads. So there are a few things that you might have to always consider, whether in terms of price, whether it's free, whether how productive it is. And a lot of those applications are to version specific. So if I'm running Autodesk Revit 2014 on my machine, and if I have a tool that was built specifically for Revit 2015, then I cannot use it. Yes, you can actually reference it. You can create for 14, 15, and 16. But if it is created in 15, you cannot actually use it in 14. So once you, let's say, like there are a couple of tools I know that ask for a huge investment. There are tools which are like $2,500 as well, which apart from Revit, you just buy it from a third party, $2,500. And a lot of them, like again, as it's free or user specific licensing. These are some of the just these snapshots. One of the tools that I would really like to highlight here is the rebuild tool. What it exactly does is, if you have an AutoCAD file where basically you underlay this back into Revit, and then you start tracing all the walls and everything. And what that tool does is rebuild tool. It actually reads all the data from your AutoCAD files in terms of your layering. Let's say you have double line or you have a single line, whatever it is. It reads the data. You have certain options there to actually format it, and then it generates the wall for you. So just reading the lines, it creates the wall. So for MEP guys, I'm talking about, like, let's say you have a single line diagram at a schematic stage. You can actually take that line coming from the AutoCAD, and then you can just simply convert that to a duct, and then later on you can still go ahead and plan, like, how do you want to split it, and then the sizing stuff.
Is it working with all MEP?
A few of them that I have created, because I know there are not a lot of tools that are available online that can do this, but we went into a stage where we actually have taken the blocks. In AutoCAD, if you understand that there is, like, elements can be created into blocks. So by reading just the block name, we map the Revit families to that block using the coordinate point that is coming, the XYZ, and then just placing it. So I'm not talking about here like doors and windows, because that actually looks for the host, but I'm talking about like tables or like elements that is like, it's not hosted. Yeah? So that can be used, and then you can actually create it. One of the tools like Door Factory, what it does is, like, every time you have to, go back, create a new family, you start drawing your reference plane, choosing what extrusion or sweep it is. What this tool does is, like, you just specify what type of frame you required, what type of panel you required, what could be the sizes, and then it creates a parametric door for you. You just have to, you will see a decent user interface where you can actually select the options that you need, and then you customize and you place it. So if you're talking about MEP, then for like the AHU, where you actually don't have to do it, a lot of manufacturers nowadays, they have their online application. You just go there, you make your selection, and then it creates it. Same way for the elevators, a lot of the manufacturers now, they are doing the same thing. So let's discover the treasure box here. A lot of these tools, they are not limited to just for production. They are actually used for various purposes. So let's say if you want to do the rendering, you have Autodesk 360 cloud rendering. It's an add-in again. So you can use that. If you're talking about interoperability, obviously you might have been using Rhino, Grasshopper, Archicad, Tekla. all these kind of softwares, you have a lot of tools available online that actually fills the gap of interoperability. So you are actually modeling the element inside Rhino or Grasshopper. You can just link it back to Revit. There are special ways you can actually do it. For electrical, for architecture, for everything, pretty much, augmented reality, everything is being available. So we have been talking like all these plugins and tools, like we have seen like the good picture of like how it looks and like how it works. And if you see that this basically comes into different formats, either it could be a DLL file, which is, I'm talking about like .dll, which is like an extension. So if you know like a Word document, which is .doc, so it's kind of a .dll format. And it basically contains all the pieces of code, and then it will combine into one library, one file, which is the DLL file. Again, that DLL file, you actually map it with an manifest file, which is the add-in file. You can map it, and then you place it into a folder, a special folder, which has been, there are like actually 3 places where you can actually place those. So as we move on, I'll come to this. But just to understand that you can actually build a DLL file, there would be an add-in file, there are macros, and if a lot of people, they don't know, or just to make the task easier, you convert this into an exe file, which is the installation file, or an MSI file. Autodesk Revit, once you install the software during the installation at the screen, you might see that you have an option to actually install the Revit Sdk as well. The Sdk, which stands for Software Development Kit. It got a lot of details in it. So once as you are a beginner, and if you want to start looking to the programming, so you choose to learn any of the language, which will come in a bit. So once you choose the language that you want to start with, you have pretty much a lot of like help documents here, where it has all the sample files. You have like the tutorials and the guidelines. So live demo. So this is done, and I can close this. And if I go back to the folder, you can see pretty much it has been organized all the families for me. If I right click and say properties, I can see there are like 124 files which have been done. It is actually counting the, if you just divide it by 2, it's actually counting the XML file as well. Yeah. So if you can see, what actually this add-on does is it creates another tab, or there are several ways. Either if you would like to create a tab, you can create an additional tab inside Revit, or if you just want to compile a library where you just want to load it every time, where you actually don't want to see that tab here, you can do that way, or you can actually create the macros that would probably help as well. So what I have done here for this session, I have created one, which is the AUX Dubai 2015. This you would get for free by the end of the class, probably like tomorrow on my blog. So if I go here, there are a few tools. I will show you in a bit like how it works and then how it was actually created. So I will start with a very simple exercise. I should have a sample project open in the background. So for this project, what I would like to do is, like in a simple way, in Revit what we do is, like if I want to hide some elements, example, I would like to hide few walls here from this particular view. Yeah. So what I do is, like I go to the View tab, I go to Visibility Graphics, and then here it will list all the categories. So I can make a selection. If I would like to turn off the walls, I can select the wall. And then if I click here, apply, OK. So here we went through like actually 4 steps Either if you assign a keyboard shortcut to it, you can do that as well. So if I go with visibility graphics, VB, and then it pops me up here, and then I can simply go back here and then turn on it back again. But what if we have a button that you can see that there are pretty much a list here. What it does is it's a toggle button, which is like an on and off. So if you are thinking in a switch, electrical switch, which is like turn on the light or turn off the light. So if I say wall, it disappears the wall. If I click it back, now you can see it remembers that the wall is the command which was performed lastly. If I click it back, the walls are back. If I click on doors, which you can probably see here, if I click it back, so with a one-click button, I can actually do that, whereas I'm talking about productivity here, because where I actually don't have to go to visibility graphics, do this exercise. Very simple task. Just to create this kind of code, I have the definition file for share. So for the door that we just saw, to perform that similar action, it requires hardly like 10 lines of code to do that, where you can actually cannot count this one. So I'm just counting this part where it says it's a door here. Yeah, I know a lot of us, we don't understand like what I'm actually showing. It's a Visual Studio used for programming. It's a software. It's similar to other softwares that can be used for programming. You can do this in Notepad as well if you know how this works. And let's say if I have a special category that if I give you this code now, once you go back to the office, what I expect from you guys is like take this code, modify it, and use it. Develop your own applications and then use it. So let's say, just as a tip here, if I know that this code, you can see pretty much, it's like TG is for toggle, and CMD is like the command. Just ignore the naming convention. And then doors here. So I know that this is for the door. So if I duplicate this, which is pretty much that you do in Revit as well, like duplicate the view. So I can copy paste and then I can duplicate this. And then let's say if I would like to turn off all the ducts from the particular view, windows, any category that you name, what I can do is I can just put a backspace. So I just remove that door from there. And then if I put the dot symbol, you can see all the categories that you pretty much see in Revit, it will list you. So let's say if I want to turn off all the rooms, or if I want to turn off all the areas. So if I start typing like room, it gives me again different options. So room is here, you have room reference lines, you have like room separation lines, all those kind of different things. Yeah. So you can simply just go here and then change the category and then bundle it, and then still you can use the code for a different category. So pretty much the same way, what I have done is I have taken the single piece of code, and then I started duplicating it, and then I created this many of tools, which if I go back to Revit, you can see that's why we are actually seeing a long list here. I can again divide this into different disciplines as well. It's just a customization here. And probably when modeling, we draw a lot of reference plane, and a lot of them that we want to stay in the project, but a lot of them we just don't want to stay, because sometimes you're looking into an elevation. You will probably see a lot of reference plane has been drawing. It's just because you have like a complex project, and then that complexity actually requires this amount. So if I select one of this reference plane, and then I can name it, I call this test. So right now I have 3 reference plane in the view, where I would actually want to delete the ones which are not named. So this one, when I select it, it's not named. The other one, which is not named, but the third one, it is named here. So if I go here back to the tool, if I say delete reference plane, it tells me that there are total 2 number of unnamed reference planes. So it is kind of a collector where you physically don't have to go and check. It's just a collector. What it is doing is just scanning through the project, finding out what are the reference plane which have not been named, and then it's giving you the dialog box, and then after that you can simply close it. So it will still retain the one that you want in the project. Yeah. And for MEP guys here, you might probably struggling to get the pipe level. So let's say if I have a pipe here in a project, so I have a pipe here. You can see, I can see the category here. Yeah. So I can also see that there is a reference level here, which is called level 1. Yeah. So if I go back to schedule and quantities, and if I go to the pipe category, I actually cannot schedule the level the pipe. Make sense? Because we can see the parameter there because it's been again categorized by a system parameter, a family parameter, project, shared parameter. But there are certain system parameters that you actually cannot schedule it. What if you want to know what level is that pipe on? You know? So you cannot actually do that. So what I did for this exercise, I created a parameter, project parameter, add, I go back to the code, I can see pipe level here. You can see it's pretty much like English here that says like it's a string. The name of the parameter is element with pipe level. I can copy this name, go back here. I can make this a text parameter. I can select the category back to pipe. It's an instance parameter, so you can group it as well. So now when I select it, I can see that I have a parameter now. That's a project parameter. Now if I go back to the tool and then say, can you please get me the pipe level? It says like pipe level has been updated for schedule. So if I close it and if I select it back, you can see that the name has been added here. Yeah. So no matter, like obviously for the vertical ones you cannot do it. It's only for the horizontal ones. Yeah. And one of my favorite that I pretty much use on a daily basis. I just simply love this tool. Probably you might as well. So I'll just minimize this window. I go to the plan view. I'm actually here somewhere in the plan view. Whereas if I go a window tile, to find out this place, eventually if I am very much familiar with the project, I can simply navigate to the place where it is. Yeah, so I can navigate to it where the element is. Whereas let's say I'm here somewhere where I would actually like to zoom into that particular location. Yeah, so if I click on this door, if I come back to the 3D view, I go here and then say center selection. If I click here, it just takes me to that particular location. You know, it's kind of a zoom object. In Revit, you have zoom to fit. Pretty much if I have to show you, you have like zoom in region, zoom out, zoom to fit, but you don't have like zoom to that particular object. Whereas if you guys have been using Rhino and a couple of other tools, you can possibly use it. All right, my favorite is not this one, which is coming again. So I have this one. So now again I go back to a different place. I am here somewhere in the plan view. I go here and then I say like view zoomer. I actually don't have like enough good names, so if you suggest I can change it. So wherever I am in the plan, it just zoom it to that particular location in the 3D view. So you eventually don't have to select anything. So I come back here, I would draw another wall, and I would just simply say view zoomer. It's because it has this section box. Sorry about that. But if I come back here and then I say view zoomer, it just zooms it to the particular location. Another one. This is my favorite, of course. So I have this component, and I say like view talker. So what it does is like it's communicate between different views. Yeah. Probably the name doesn't make sense, but obviously this tool will. So if I say view talker, now see the magic. I'm just using the scroll button to zoom in and out. So pretty much what it does, if I say zoom in region to that particular place, just zooms in. Sorry? It is, it is. You have a feature that it does is like it's, again, a lot of us, it's a good question for updating, because a lot of us, in my previous practice and other places where I was there for many firms here where I was actually training them, a lot of people get scared when they actually see the tools because they say like, oh no, Revit is actually slow. If you put on top of that another application, it might gonna slow it or it might gonna crash it, but it's not gonna do it. As you can see, there are like, if you do a proper health checkup for your files, if you do like a proper planning to it, obviously it won't do it. Yeah. So what it does is like it's constantly talking to it. Let's say if I have a filled region, yeah, filled region, I cannot tag it, right? So at an early stage, like the conceptual stage, you might probably start for the space planning for color coding, you might start using the filled regions. You cannot schedule it. So what's the point of like having used a filled region if you cannot schedule it? So I have created certain types of those tools. What it does is like, even though if you are modifying the filled region once you created the boundary, it will still keep on scheduling you the value. So you move the filled region, it gets updated into the schedule. It gets you the area and those kind of stuff. Yeah. So there are a lot of tools that is there that actually keep on communicating with it. Let's say if I want to place a duct and I don't want to place a duct to that particular length, I want to limit the length of the duct, I can just write some code that will do the job. So another one which is for coordinates updates, you can get the XYZ value for every individual element, but you cannot I can use this tool which is called the spot coordinate. So when I select the spot coordinate, I can highlight the element or a point to actually find out what's the coordinate of it. But I physically don't have like an X, Y, Z value that gets scheduled. Yeah. So if I come back and add few parameters, which you can see X, Y, Z parameter, which I have already been added into the project. To save some time, let's say if I select the door properties, I have this XYZ value here, and then I don't know what the XYZ value. So I'm talking here about like the structured columns. Yeah. I go back to the tool. I'll say coordinate update. Oops, my bad. All right. I swear it was working last night. It's not now. All right, doesn't matter. But what it does is like it gets you the XYZ value and then paste it. Did I do anything wrong? Yep, I did. So switching back to the code, you can actually go back and read this code. Like you have questions, you can come back to me, ask for a question. This is the parameter name. Coming back, pasting. I don't have to make it a length parameter. I want to keep it as a text parameter, because a length parameter, it could also have like the decimal, but for some reason it's the text parameter. I will say check all. I will add this back quickly to Y. Check this all. And another one. Did I? Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Again, I did something wrong again, sorry. But what it does is actually take the XYZ value and then paste it, that you can schedule it if it is a shared parameter. Obviously, it's a project parameter, so you can schedule it, but you cannot do it in a link file. So there are some of the tools. Actually, there are a lot of tools that if I go on talking about all these tools, but just to the time constraint, I'm limited to here. But there are a lot of tools. Let's say I get a file from the consultant where I would like to clean up these files. Like I want to delete all the views, I want to delete all the sheets because it's not of my use, and I want to delete all the CAD files that they imported, which I physically don't have the CAD file with me. So it's there in their database, and then I don't have anything. So the cleanup of those files, you can actually say like select all view, CAD files, sheets, schedules, Revit links, etc. And then it will warn you again, like just be careful here. If you still want to delete it, you say yes. It goes back, and then it says like I have deleted this many of views, deleted this many of sheets, and then the other things. It might help you when you are actually getting the models, because the reason why you would like to create this tool is because let's say if I have like 500 views and then like 500 sheets in my model, obviously the file size will increase, yeah, because it has to generate the graphics every time the file opens, and the graphic cards as well, obviously certain other reasons as well. So, but these kind of tools would actually save some time eventually. So, whereas let's say if I have received a file from a consultant where I have been given like 20 Revit files, which I have to do this exercise same time. So, I open the file, detach from central, whatever it is, and I run this tool, I delete it, I save as back to the central. Obviously, for 20 files, I might spend like another 30 minutes or an hour or 5 hours, depends on the file size. Whereas if I have these tools, I can actually select all the list of the files, and then I will say like, just do this exercise for me.
It's like a third of CAD, right?
It is. It is. If you, yeah, if I come back to the question, which is the batch script, what it does is like for Revit, every time I perform certain actions inside Revit, it actually start recording those information. Let's say I draw a wall, it records an information into the journal files. It's called the journal files. There are certain folders there on the computer. So just to quickly access, I created this for my phase one. So let's say if I want to go back to that journal folder where I would like to show you, this is the path where it is, all the journal files. If I open this file, you can see all the actions that we just did couple of minutes to that particular session. It records everything. So using these journal files, I can actually automate the stuff. Let's say I want to upgrade all the files. I can do the upgrade, and if I have some another task, I can use it as well. Here is one of the door that I created in the past, and it actually got, it's a multiple panel door. It's parametric, so you can say like, give me like 5 panels on the left, 2 panels on the right. It gets you. So if you go back here, you can see all these different symbolic reasons. It got a couple of families which have been nested and those kind of stuff. So the thing to show here is it got like a whole lot of parameters. Because I've been into like the BPM side very much, I kind of understand like what parameters I required when I see the object. So I start creating all these parameters, formulas, values, everything back into Excel. And as you can see, there are a few formulas here. There are a few formulas here, few other parameters. But the important part here is all these other visibility parameters. So if I have to add, you can see probably, which is left to panel 1 till right panel 20, which means left panel 20 is there. So we are talking about like 40 parameters that needs to be added physically inside a family. If you have to do it, obviously I bet it will not be lesser than 15 minutes. Plus, there are more parameters again. You got like another sets of parameters. There are another like 30 or 35 parameters, if I don't remember. So there were around like 120 parameters something inside that family, where you have again like nested families. To that nested families, you have to map those parameters just so that it works when you load inside the project. Yeah. So if I go here, and if I have to create that same amount of families, parameters, to another door. So let's say I selected this door, new door. I have like bunch of system parameters that comes by default. If I go here to manage, macro manager, I created this one which is called door parameter. There is a code behind that. If I run this, it takes like 2 seconds. It got all those parameters listed here. I have eventually saved like 20 minutes of thinking and then like updating those kind of details here, and then you can see that all those parameters it got listed here. So let's say for a door, I know like I have a standard schedule for the door and a specific parameter that I want to add to the door. I can create the kind of macros. I can run it. So every time the family opens, you have those parameters there. Another one, which is a very basic one. You can see I have a wall here. Like if I want to just pass through this wall and see what is happening behind that wall, I have to actually select this, right click, override elements, override graphic elements in view by element, and then I can go back here and then say, make the projection lighter, transparent, ghost, and those kind of stuff. Whereas if I could have like a simple 3 lines of codes, which is this one, macro manager. If I say ghost element, edit, there are some weird names here. This is another code editor where you can do the languaging as well. So you can see pretty much, just by seeing this, you can understand that there is a projection line color, there is a projection line weight, surface transparency, and then the pattern ID. So if I run this back, if I select this and then say run, it just does is it just saves my time to see the elements what is behind it. There are a lot of these tools are still available with that package. So let's say this one, which says like count walls. If I have to eventually count all the walls in the project, the reason why I'm saying like count walls is because on a big picture, when you say like calculate all the wall area for me, rather me going back recreating the schedule, I would say like just calculate total area for me. Just calculate how many furniture objects are there. Just calculate how many doors have been there. For energy analysis, you can do those kind of stuff as well. So if I run this back again and say like, please count me the furniture. It says like there are 104 furniture which are physically placed inside the project, and there are 116 which is there inside the library that you have actually not utilized it. Yeah. Is the same thing with the walls. So if I say walls, run, it says like there are 181 walls which have been actually placed inside the wall, inside the project, and then 212 is not, it's there still in the library. So those kind of tools. There is another one which is called Bim One. It's a very great tool if you haven't been using it. It's a good friend of mine who's working on this one, and he have been put a great effort in creating this program. And what it actually does is, if I come back, all right. Sorry, this one will not take much. Yeah. Okay, so I am actually drawing a wall here, which is a curtain wall, Let's say it's a storefront. I'm just giving as a tip here, just so that you can actually utilize this into many ways. So now you can see for this particular wall, we have like 3 different panel sizes here. Yeah. So I just wanted to colorize those panels, or I can set up pretty much a condition here that says that go to the tool, color splasher, the warning that I didn't save the project. So color splasher, curtain panels, all the panels for that particular curtain wall. I can select the area, and then you can see there all these different panels that we have has like 4 different area types. And you can pretty much see the color here. So I can go back here and then say rainbow, it changed the color, refresh, it starts changing the colors. Yeah. You can still click here and then set the colors. You can save the scheme as, and then you can still bring back those settings. And then I will say like apply color set, and then close. You can see just colorize it. Yeah. So if you can see that here, which I kind of the one that I was working on. I would like to know like different parameters, different panel sizes, and the areas for that. So I use this one. And there is another one that they have recently kept together, which is called the Bim Track. And it's again a very good collaborative software. It's under beta testing. If you would be interested to learn or would like to contribute to the software, you can obviously go to their website and just Google for Bim Track, or by the end of the slides you might have the more details of the slide. Yeah. And another one, which is a very good one. I have this project. Oftentimes the project cases is like, you have to send it to the rendering where you can actually see the physical the building when it gets constructed. So if I have a view, what I can do is I can go to this application which is called Enscape. If you haven't really tried this, just try this application. It's the best application so far I have seen. What it does is once I start this, obviously I'm using a trial version, it does this real-time rendering. So let's say you have the clients in the office where you are actually going through a meeting where you are displaying the model. What it does is like it just captures whatever the view that you are looking at. It just creates a real-time view it is. So if you have heard about Lumion, probably those kind of tools, that does exactly the same thing, which is like the real-time rendering. And sorry, but yeah, you can see that the project come on. You can see that pretty much, sorry about that, by my mouse. I can actually change the view because right now it doesn't have a good one. But what it does is it actually creates this real-time rendering. So whatever the materials that you applied onto that particular element, you can eventually see them. Come on. You can eventually see them. Yeah. There is another one which is there in place, amazing tool, which is called the Flux. It fills the gap between Revit, Rhino, or other softwares. So it's a web-based software. It is pretty much there, and it can be done with the software. You can do some very cool stuff. There is another one for energy analysis, Lumion. You can use Unity to export your models. Use it for your virtual reality, this kind of stuff. There are basically Revit supports like 4 different languages, which is the VB, Ruby, C#, and Python. Python is kind of a very easier to learn as a language because it actually doesn't require a lot of efforts. Whereas C# and VB.NET, you might have to dedicate some time just as a quick one, if I have to show you about the Python, which I haven't actually covered it, there is one which is called the Revit Python shell. If I open this one and save few codes, Python, yeah. You can see pretty much it doesn't have like a lot of code, but you know, like looking at the code might be a bit of it's not clear. But what it does is, like, let's say if I copy and paste it, and if I say run, what it does, this bit of code is it gets me all the different types of project parameter. You know, you have project parameter, you have shade parameter. If you just want to quickly analyze like how many are the shade parameters there inside the project, you can just type this simple code and then it works, and then it gets you the list of parameter. It's just not giving you the parameter name, it is giving you the type of parameter it is, what type it is, whether it's an instance or text, or what are the different categories it has been assigned as well. So these are all the different Revit categories that we can see here. If I go to the project, if I say project parameter, modify, all these categories that I have been checked in, it's just displaying me a list of it. So again, I can go back and re-customize those. So Python, Visual Basic, C# and Python, these are some of the languages. But on top of this one, there is another one. Like all these things that I have shown you is the hard way. So if you have to learn all this coding and stuff, it will eventually take a lot of your time to learn this. But now, the good news is we have Dynamo. Heard of it, yeah? How many of you heard of it? How many of you been using it heavily? Creating nodes? Yeah. Yeah, there are some of the videos that I started to create in the past. It's there available on my YouTube channel, but due to some of the company policies that I have to just remove them in a batch mode. So you might go to my channel as well, and then just to have a look into it, some of the cool stuff which is happening. So those different options are coming. So we saw like 4 different languages. The another one, which is the JavaScript, which is again one of my favorite now, because it actually doesn't require a lot of coding stuff. A bit of, you know, with an English statement, you can probably understand this language, JavaScript. And then you can use this one which is called LastCat. It's it is there. I can create this. Let's see. Let me show you one easier one. This one. Yeah. So here, what I have is like tagging the doors. So oftentimes, like internally we had like a standard that says like, you know, whenever I tag a door, the naming convention for the door number as a mark, I need to have like the room number, to room information or from room information inside the tag. Yeah. So what was happening is like I was looking at this code as well, and what it does is pretty much if I just say run, it will say like what number that you would like to start with, whether it's A, B, or C. As a quick example to show you, Scott, come on first. All right, so I have a room, I have another room, I have a door, another door. So probably you understand, like with Revit, you have this 2 room information. Yeah, make sense? So if I go to this family for the door, I go here, and then I just activate this room calculation point that actually schedules me, because it actually creates this one, which is the 2 room and from room information based on the behavior of the family, because it got this exterior and the interior part. So if I load this back to the new project tool, so now I have that one loaded, I can see that. And now what I would like to do is I have a room number. Actually, I will use my tool to do that. I will say auto renumber. What it does is like I have a specific naming convention for the room. I would say like start with the, okay, let's see this, auto number. What it does, what do you want to do with this? Room number, door number, space number. You can add a lot of categories on top of this one. Yeah. The current number, this starts with 1. You say like prefix, I would like to add this one. So I would like to add a prefix to every door number that I click, and it should generate me the serial numbers from 1 to and on. So what it does is I click, you can see it just renames 2. I would say like, let's say 10 here, remove this 1 0. Yeah. So rather a person has to actually first select the room, go here, type it every time. Something changes, you have to again go back and come and do it. But okay, now the main point is I want to renumber this door based on the 2 room information. So I have the number here, which is this one. So one way, a manual way, is I can select this, I can say here, I can come back and then I can say put this as mark number A, yeah, which I have done it. What if the door swing direction has been changed? So we are talking about like 5,000 doors in a project, probably less than that, probably more than that. There should be a quick way, yeah? So what I will do is I will use this tool which is called Retag Door, run, starts with 1, okay, updated 4 doors. Now if I change this one, I can still go back and do it. But another quick way that I will show you is, let's say 0 0. All right. So now it's been renumbered back to 0. I use my version. I would say, what is that? Door number. It gives me a dialog box that says like renumber whatever you want to do it. Let's say for furniture, if I place a furniture, I'm taking the room data sheet. I would like to know what furniture is in there. My previous project was there in Abu Dhabi. We have to deliver a big hospital where we are generating this room data sheet for the medical equipment, and I was kind of taking care for all the content and those kind of stuff. So I have to kind of get all those information extracted from that particular project, and then kind of generate kind of a report and then present it. Eventually I can do this through schedule, but it actually takes a lot of time for me to generate those back information. Whereas, as you know, like for a medical planner, things might change from here to there like very often, and then like I was kind of struggling to do it manually because every time it gets changed, I have not been notified. I have to still go back and recheck it. So I have a spreadsheet, I have a drawing, I have to recheck it, tally it. So my eyes are getting bad. Yeah. So this one, what it does is like it takes this category. You select what category it is, whether it's to room or from room. You say current view, current selection, entire project, and as you can see, it's pretty much 0 here. I would say current selection because I don't have anything in selection. I would just filter this out. I would just say doors. I go back to the door number. I say current selection process. Okay, okay. It just renames it. Yeah.
The 2-room parameter doesn't update when you change the swing of the door, so you're not using that parameter for this value, you're using something else?
Sorry, come again?
The 2-room
yes.
parameter for the door
yes.
doesn't change if you change the swing of the door.
It will.
It won't.
All right. Let's check it out. It will. It has to, because that's why probably if you don't have this room calculation point checked, it won't change. But if I create a new schedule now, and let me say door, I will say to room. I'm just adding those numbers. I would say add the mark parameter as well. And it's been added. And if I window tile this, come on. All right, now this room, it has this 2-room number here. So now if I, which is 1001, but let me just change this to a different number just so we can understand this. Let me make it 500. No confusions. I go back here and then I will say change. It changed the 2-room information. As long as it's that room calculation point is not. Sorry? Yeah, if I edit this family, go back here to the family category and parameters on the top. Here I have like another sets of extra parameters that actually pretty much handles behavior. Here is the one which is the room calculation point. So furniture, every individual element, you can schedule it. If you don't have that particular parameter schedule, it won't eventually. So yep, we have this, and so all right, it does it. Yeah. So for this particular file, I want to know the coordinates, because a lot of times we all might have been struggling when we have shared coordinates in the project. You have like sub-consultants model, you have your own discipline models being splitted into multiple files where you link it, and once you link it, things are not matching. You link it by shared coordinates, it's somewhere there. So obviously you will fix it, you have to, but how do we find out if we have like 30 different models? My previous practice, we had like a requirement that all the sub-consultants have to submit their BIM models, which was used as Revit was the authoring tool for it, and we were end up like 132 plus files. So tiling guys have their own models, lighting fixture separate models, for ducting, piping, like for interior finishes, everything, it's a single model from different sub-consultants. And there was a problem. The big problem was one of my new colleague, he just transferred the project standards, and then there is a parameter there that actually overrides the coordinates of the project. What was that parameter? Anyone? Any guess? Project info. Project info is the one. So if I go here, the very first thing as a tip here, whenever you open as a transfer project standard, make sure you just say check none first. Yeah. And there is one which is called project info. What it does is like it will transfer the coordinates from a different file. Let's say I have a library, I have a project file which I kind of use as a library. So what was happened at that case was the same thing. So we had like a system family where all the goodies have been dumped into that particular project, and my colleague, he just simply overwrited it with that particular one. Again, somebody else has overwritten, the story went away, and then we had to check the files now. So every individual file detached from central, 50 plus MB one file, it was gigabytes of folder, have to check it and then rectify where is the actual problem. If not, if I am taking a single file and then relinking it, at some point Revit is giving me the hard time because of my machine. Yeah. So came up with something, file coordinates. Right now it says 0, 0 because we eventually haven't changed anything from here. If I go to visibility graphics, site, project point, base point, just to turn this on and off, you can still use my code. Yeah. So now I unpin this, probably move this, select this one, unpin, and then I moved it. So obviously the shared coordinates value got changed here. So you can see there are different values here as well. So now file coordinates, it gives me the value. This is not a fit. Let's say if I link a file, if I link another Revit file, let's say sample project, close. All right, the other file got linked. No, it didn't. Why not? Presentations. Come on, give me a file. All right. So, but basically, what it does is like it will also display you the coordinate of a link file. So I will just quickly save this one. I will close this because Revit will not accept the link file. coordinates. All right, the file is linked here. Now if I go back to my little tool, file coordinates, yep, you can see it gives you the file name for the one which is linked, and then it gives you the coordinates as well. So this is your current file, which actually doesn't have name because I didn't actually save this file. But let's say if you have like number of files, you can just simply export this to a TXT format or in a Word format, or you can just take it directly to an Excel. So this could be done. Yeah. So there were like many of these kind of tools that you might see that it actually increased the productivity. So JavaScript, sorry, it was too diverted from here to there. Another one is the Dynamo. All right, we all are running out of time. It's 3:34, which we actually crossed like 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. All right, sorry about this, guys, but if you don't mind, let me just finish this up. Yeah. So another one, yeah, obviously Dynamo. On a big picture, it's a very good tool. If you haven't been using in your practice, start using it. It does some amazing jobs. You have Dynamo, it's a free version. So even though you don't have Revit installed on your machine, you can still open Dynamo and do some amazing stuff with it. Dynamo has this Dynamo Studio as well, which is a paid version from Autodesk that has some other advantages on top of the normal one, obviously. And then it's an open source project, again, an open source project as in right now you are seeing the codes which are on my screen, but it's not open source now. It's my code. What I can do is I can just put it to somewhere, and then I can say like, guys, I have created this tools. If you have more ideas, please contribute to this. So it's like an open source where everybody has access to this coding environment and those kind of stuff, and then you can start coding and then making one file, and then obviously the owner will be the owner, but it's an open source file. Yeah. So Dynamo, it's an open source there on GitHub. So you can just log into GitHub, ask for a request, you would be there. There was a lot of codes that I would like to want to finish in the session, but it's been a long time. So this piece of code, probably you will be seeing here. This piece of code, what it does is like it takes the family categories. Visual programming language is very easy. It's something like in in the back days, like you have this cards there where you would like to make some pictures of it. It's been splitted into somewhere. You just try to puzzle it. It's exactly the same thing here. What it is happening here is like you have a category here, which is this one, that says like, get me this particular category, which is the furniture category. I'm saying place this on this particular point and make them in a sequence. You can see these names are pretty much understandable. Make it in a sequence and then point by coordinates, because I'm taking the points here, all family types of this category, and the category is furniture. I can change this to specialty equipment, generic model, to any other thing, and then here is the code. Once you hit the run button, it plays all the furniture families in your project. So let's say I created a bunch of families, I given it for QA/QC, someone else can just simply load those families into the project, and then they can just simply place it. So visually you can actually go back and scan those families. There were so many codes there, still running out of the time. I am sure that you all would agree with me that obviously Revit has few limitations, but using these add-ons would actually boost the productivity. Am I true? Yep. Yeah. Thank you for agreeing. All right. So here are some of the resources. So what is happening here is like this has been existing from a long time. So there have been a lot of research, and then it's there in the market. A lot of places where you can go and find out a lot of information from the website about this programming. So these are the ones where if you are interested to learn the programming in a hard way, you can go to those links, and then what it pretty much does is has some people, they have blogs, some people they have their own website, some people offers like the free consultation service, some people are like freelancing, so you can get into that. And another one, there are some video courses. So the ones that we just happened, it just was a small introduction, but there are some places where you can actually go to these places, and then there are the paid ones, obviously. I started to do this on a free basis, but eventually I have been stopped because one of the things that I started to create my channel, and then suddenly people started to say that it's an inappropriate content for this channel. So YouTube handles that. So once somebody says like, it's inappropriate, your channel has been blocked by certain amount of days. So I've been going through with this. I've been communicating with Google because I had around like 170 plus videos there online. And in no time, everything has been gone. And then they say it's like, you have been blocked. I cannot log into my account. I cannot log into my channel. And obviously those are free ones, so no blames. Recommendations. Obviously, as you can see, that applications will save a lot of times in your workflow. And I don't have that feeling that, okay, I'm coming from a certain background, I would never jump into the programming language. But take some time, think about it, and just be awesome. It's not over. It's not over. Actually, I have to again, remove many of the slides. Sorry, but again, some great resources. MIT, they have like a huge list of programming on the websites, on their websites, on their channels, Vimeo, YouTube, everywhere. You will find a lot of places where you can eventually learn a language. If you find some kind of difficulties learning into a specific language, send over your questions. I will definitely be there to help you. Another few slides there. These ones, as I said in the beginning, that you will get all the source codes, everything for free on my blog, which I just started. Another thing that I forgot to tell you, but one of my friends was here. I think he just left. With Revit, you can do some very awesome stuff. Apart from just modeling, making some cool buildings, designing, and those kind of stuff, you can take it to the next level with your 3D printing. Probably might have heard this morning there. 3D printing gives you a lot of flexibility. So if you have models, you can start exporting from Revit and then send it over to the 3D printer. I have like a very small printer at home. It's not very expensive, but I use it for my kind of a personal use. And in fact, my son, he's actually learning it. So he's learning SketchUp, so I'm trying to help him to learn the tool as well. So with the 3D printing, you can actually do some very cool stuff. This model, the Revit models, are not just for visualizing. You can physically see it, how it's been done. There were certain very complex roofs that I have to do for my previous projects. We used it for MEP as well. What we did is like, I started to print out those pipe fittings, long length pipes and those kind of stuff, just so that like, my line manager could take those pieces instead of drawing it, or instead of learning a software, he can take those pieces and then just assemble it. So it's been used with Revit. I just exported it into a 3D printer, and then it's there. Yeah. So you will get this one for free. So don't be silly again. Pick up anything and just code, because the more you think, you are still thinking about it. There is a New Year resolution which is coming. Just make sure you add this to your list. Here are my details. If you would just like to take a snapshot of it. And my personal email ID is there. I haven't actually put my official email ID. And I started with Buro Happold last week, and it's an amazing firm to work. And then you would definitely see a lot of things that we have been thinking of, and then that would be there in the market soon. Yeah. And again, there will be a lot of motivation you will get from me if you send over some emails. Yeah. All right. Any questions? Please. Thank you.
Your blog address.
As I said, everything was blocked by Google. I have to switch back to a new website. The new one, which is called probably you can just remember it. It's called Bim Tip a Day. So if I have to type it, dot bimtipaday.com. So here is the one, which is a new one, which I set up like recently, and it hasn't had like a lot of stuff because I was actually running some other blocks, and it does not exist now anymore. I'm still fighting for it, and I hope it's up soon. If not, then it should be here. Any questions? At least 5 questions, guys, please. No? Which language to learn? It could be a question, yeah? What else? JavaScript? Sorry? Yes. It's mostly F# again. So again, a different language, kind of hard to learn. I looked into it. I've kind of been like familiar with like probably 5-6 different languages, but I feel like start with Python. On the previous slides, there were some references to the websites, which is called like code.org and those kind of places, where you can actually go to their website. You can physically type in, let's say like a calculator. You say like 2 + 2, it gets you the result. So you can do some online programming. It's an interactive sessions. So it tells you like, okay, no, here you are going wrong. So those kind of stuff. It's there in the previous reference, if you might have taken the snapshot. Yeah. Anything else? No? No questions? So I hope everything is being understood, isn't it?
Well, we can get the slideshow.
Yeah, obviously. As I said, you go to this website tomorrow, probably if not tomorrow, on Friday, on the weekend, clean up a bit. I will clean up a bit. You can say, if I just give you this code, you might start complaining me as like, okay, this guy has given me a code, but he doesn't actually explain me how to use it. So what I'll do is, I will go back to this code over the weekend, obviously. I would say is like, these are the parameters to add to project. Yes? Makes sense, right? So I will comment this out and then send it over so that you can have this. Thank you again for coming, guys.